Welcome to Dolby Creator Talks. This is a show about how artists use technology to tell their stories, and I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Today we're discussing the limited series Adolescence. Since its premiere, the show has become a massive hit for Netflix with 13 Primetime Emmy Award nominations, including Outstanding Limited or Anthology Series. If you were among the 145 million viewers globally who have watched the show, then you already are aware of some of the incredible technical achievement behind the storytelling, as each of the 4 episodes was shot as a single continuous take. The result is a harrowing procedural drama that feels as if it's unfolding in real time because, well, it did. Today, we are delving into how the filmmakers managed to pull it all off so successfully. Joining us is Philip Barantini. He's nominated for Outstanding Directing for the series, as well as Director of Photography Matthew Lewis, who's nominated for Outstanding Cinematography for Episode 2. We also have the nominees from the sound team, as Episode 1 was nominated for both sound editing and sound mixing. So joining our discussion today is supervising sound editor and re-recording mixer James Drake, re-recording mixer Jules Woods, and production sound mixers Rob Entwistle and Kiff McManus. That's a big panel of guests and a lot to go over, so let's jump right in. I wanted to start the conversation with the obvious question: how did such an ambitious project come about? And was the decision to shoot it all exclusively in single shots part of the concept from the beginning? Here's director Philip Barantini.
The way it sort of came about was Boiling Point had just come out, and I had a meeting with Plan B, and they sort of said to me, "We'd love to do something with you and Stephen in the one take format, but for television." And I was like, oh, great, okay.
Police! Get down on the floor!
What's going on? I've got 2 kids upstairs!
What I haven't done anything! Look, you've got the wrong house, I'm telling you. You're making a big mistake. Police, suspect found! Show me how! Get your hands in the air!
They were like, look, go away and have a think about an idea. Take your time, and so we got off the call, and then I immediately called Stephen, and I was like, Plan B want to do a one take series with us. We've got to come up with an idea. And so we both sort of like, I think it was like a few days later, and we were both traveling in a car together. So I think it was an event to do with Boiling Point. So we were in a car together, and Stephen just reeled off this idea, and it was like, there'd been an epidemic in the UK of knife crime, and there'd been a few instances of young boys killing these young girls, and it was we wanted to ask the question, why is this happening? So Stephen just basically reeled off every episode in the back of this car to me, and it's pretty much what you see on the TV. So that's kind of how it came about, and immediately when we knew we were going to do this as a one take, I knew I had to get the team back together. So Rob, Kiff, Matt, James, Jules didn't work on Boiling Point, but he's part of the family now as well. Anyway, but it was because I think because we'd gone through it before on like a micro budget, and now we were going to be able to do a lot more ambitious things. And I really wanted, Rob and Kiff's work on Boiling Point was just immense. And, I knew that they were the only people that would be able to pull this off. And same with Matt as well. So it was amazing when everyone was able to sort of come together and do it again, because I never thought I'd do another one take again. Maybe we will again. Who knows? Because it is a lot of fun. It's an amazing way of working.
I have to apologize and kind of bust myself, because I saw Adolescence pretty early on after it dropped on Netflix, and I saw it cold. I hadn't read anything about the process or what you guys did, so I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I think I was about halfway through episode 1 before it occurred to me that this was a oneer.
You're not alone in that. I know several people in the industry who got further than that and then suddenly went, hang on, I'm going to watch this again just to check.
Yeah. And kudos to you guys. It's, I mean, obviously this was a hugely challenging way to do this, but it's not gimmicky in a way. It just flows. So I'm kind of curious, again, for you, Philip, like, how does this land for the audience? How does this feel differently for the audience than, if you were shooting with traditional coverage?
The thing is, we were very, very careful in terms of like when we were writing the scripts, like we didn't ever want it to feel like a gimmick. The one take for me always has to serve the story and the performances, and it has to almost be like a subconscious being, I suppose. And you want the audience to sort of exactly what you've just said. There is, you want the audience to be immersed in it and really feel like they are going on a journey in real time, but you don't want them to ever be taken out of it and be like, oh, this is really clever. Look how clever they're being. It's always got to serve the story for me. And I think that doesn't lend itself to every piece. It's we had to really think carefully about, how we were going to approach this one. Because, you can be like, oh, let's, and we did have lots of toys and we had lots of things to play with, and it was a lot of fun. But what Matt is great at and all of the team are great at is just being like, someone like Matt doesn't turn around and go, oh, I'm the DP, so I'm going to make you feel really flashy and really cool and really nice. He's always, there to serve the story, and it has to be this subconscious feeling, really, I think.
I'd love to focus first on episode 1. And Rob and Kiff, I'm so curious to hear what your process was. Obviously, as Philip says, you guys had done this, in the past, but this represented a pretty significant step up in terms of size and scope and complexity, multiple locations, obviously. And I'm just kind of curious about your process of figuring out how you were going to do this.
Just tons of planning. Both Rob and I were just, went into it. And because we've done Boiling Point, we had some idea of how you could start to unpick this massive ball of string. One part, I've said lots of other things about this, but one part of it, quite an important part, is you have to look at every area you have as a distinct place that you've got to get RF from. So if that's outside the car, then inside the car, then when the car's traveling up the road to the house, then outside the house, and inside the house, and upstairs in the top bedroom. Each area you've got to sort of go, right, I need to get the RF signals either from the boom or the radio mics back to a mixer, right, either Rob or myself, or, in some places, a plant mixer that we just put in to take plant mics from about the area. And then, from the house, then into the van, then sort of live to the set, which was the police station. And then when I arrived at the set, because I set up my mixing area in the video village, which was in a big 18-seater van, because it was the only way I could conceive of that we could actually get to all these places with the kit, and then, okay, we needed extra kit at each place, but at least there's one place. And also Phil, the producer, and everyone needs to be able to see it at each location, and it would be impossible for them to like jump out of a van, run to another video village, get back in. The logistics would have made no sense. So we had this one place that we could travel with. And
I just want to add that it was absolutely seamless for me when I was listening to it. I could see them running. I'm in the van and I can see Kiff running out and running into the thing, but the sound was just, it didn't like falter. It was just seamless the whole time. So, the amount of effort that these guys put into it and what they did was just, like for me, being able to just hear everything all the time in a scenario that we were in is so impressive. Like,
so I just look, my mind just reels. I've got so many questions, but like my first question is Philip, where were you during takes? Were you like in a production truck with monitors in a village, or were you moving the locations with the actors at the same time, or what? How did that process?
I was just at home with my feet up on the couch. No.
The whole time.
So for episode 1, I was in Video Village van the whole time, which was moving around. Episode 2, I was in one of the classrooms in the school. Episode 3 was in the studio, so I was just at a like a large monitor at the studio there, so I was able to stay there. And in episode 4, again, we were in the same Video Village van, but in episode 1, we dressed the Video Village van as a police van, so it could be in shot. And
so you were actually in the shots. So
I'm in the show. In fact, I need to speak to Netflix about a fee for that. We all do, actually. We're all in it. And then. In episode 4, we dressed it as one of the work vans, so it was at the hardware store. There's two people in the front of the van. I think it was props and obviously the driver. We told them to wear like a high vis jacket so they looked like work people because it's in shot. So we're in shot. It was so I was all over the place.
So my understanding is that you had like about 3 weeks per episode. Is that
correct? Yeah.
So and the first week was just you working with the actors, right?
Yes.
But importantly in the location, right? Because you have to. Were you able to previs or storyboard any of this, or was it just sort of like you guys had to get in the location and figure out how this was all going to map out?
Well, I'll let Matt speak, but like Matt and I had about 6 months prior to any of the rehearsals where we would sort of map out the camera moves essentially.
That first week of the 3 weeks was, although it was very much cast focused and you working through with the cast of blocking and the performances, while that was going on, camera team and video and grip and lighting and everyone were all sort of like setting up still in the background, sort of trying not to get in the way and trying
and the sound team, right?
Well, I don't know if they had all 3 weeks though. You didn't, did you? Not entirely. You
at the beginning, right? What we thought was going to happen was it just was going to be you and the actors working on the performance. And I honestly thought in the beginning, and this is what Rob thought as well, is that Matt would be there and either Rob or myself would be there just to make sure that you weren't like digging a hole that we couldn't get out later on. But then other people started showing up and suddenly lighting was there. So getting ready, we're going, oh, there's only me here and I can't rig anything because I've got to watch what's happening in that scene. It changed as we went along. It got.
Do you remember the big issue that we had in episode 3 with the floor?
Oh my God, the hot chocolate.
The hot chocolate,
and the squeaky floor.
Oh, and
that's what I meant. We had to literally change the floor or something, didn't we?
It was flexing too much, wasn't it? Because obviously that's a long scene.
Yeah,
a lot of feet going, a lot of weight in that.
Once you guys got through your prep, the actual production was like, it was basically a week, right? 5 days. But my understanding is that you were doing 2 takes a day. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That 3 weeks. So it was our cast rehearsal / us all doing what we can. Then it was like a tech rehearsal week. So that we all blended it together, went through it section by section and sort of did longer and longer sections all the way through that week until we got somewhere close to being able to shoot an episode. And then if we were lucky, by the end of the middle week, we would maybe almost start doing like rehearsals that were all the way through or like some dress rehearsals. And then we'd shoot it in the last week. So that's just to get that, like the sort of tempo that we had each episode prep.
And it was twice a day,
It's an interesting mixture. I mean, from the actor's perspective, it's an interesting mixture of like live theater with film. I'm sure it must have been a very interesting experience. But Philip, for you, like as a filmmaker and a storyteller, it's so courageous because, you don't have the luxury of in post trimming moments back that are maybe feeling a bit long or rearranging stuff that maybe doesn't make as much sense as you thought it would. It's really sort of, you're on a high wire act with no net. What you got is what you got. I'm just fascinated by your courage in doing that.
I don't know if it's courage, but yeah, you sort of. I think it could, because you know early on that's how you're going to do it. You just have to, in rehearsals, you have to sort of adapt it as best as you can. And I think for us, we went into it with an open mind, I guess. But for Netflix, it was very different for them because
they couldn't give you notes.
Can't give us notes. But so they would come in on I think the Wednesday of the tech rehearsal, so the second rehearsal week. They would come in on a Wednesday, and by that point we're doing the whole thing. We're at a point where we're running the whole thing in its entirety. So they could come in and sit in Video Village, and then they could watch it live, and then they could give us some notes after that. But, they're very limited in what notes you can give. You can't say, oh, I think that scene needs to move to a different location or whatever. You know what I mean? It's literally got to be performance notes, really. And so, but they were fantastic. Netflix were just amazing, really, really amazing partners.
It hadn't occurred to me, but it's kind of a genius move on your part just to make sure that you don't have any studio interference, because what can they possibly do, right?
Nothing, absolutely nothing.
but the one thing you can do in post, obviously, is you can use the sound design and the score to kind of push it one way or another in terms of emotion and tone. So, I would love for you guys to talk about the sound design process on this. I understand you actually spent some time on set during production as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I was up there for episodes 1 and 2, and just being with Rob and Kiff and listening, giving feedback, and just chatting. Sitting there with Rob on every take, and just both of us kind of at the end scratching our heads and going, what can we tweak? What can we have a go at next time that we can make a little bit better, or wild track, or it's an amazing process of watching it unfold and being able to, like, in real time, try and make stuff a little bit better. It was invaluable.
Incredibly good for Rob and I as well, because to have someone from post there, so to know where it's actually going to go and what they really need, makes it so much clearer in your own head. So like some dead ends we didn't go down because James was there, and some things that we knew that we had to really concentrate on, again, we did because James was there. So it was immensely good for the whole process that James was there. I honestly can't say this often enough. That should happen a lot. Should in other movies.
For me as well, to have him there, to be able to do, stuff that we would have to do in ADR, not just with actors, but with all the background, like especially in episode 2 with the school, you got 350 kids. James was able to go and literally, put a mic next to them and just be like, say that line that you've just said in the background because I was watching you. What were you saying? Can you say that again? Things like that, you know what I mean? Which you just cannot. Honestly, it made all the difference because, James will tell you this, and Jules, I'm not a big fan of crowd ADR. I prefer to capture stuff on the day if you can. I think it was just, an absolute godsend. Because all those kids, it makes it more real. Yeah.
But you recorded so many, like a massive library of sound effects and stuff as well. Like, the real doors from the school, different bits and pieces from the police station, all kinds of stuff. And all of that played a massive part in the signature of the sound of the show.
2 was big. Every day we were kind of out there getting groups of 10 and having them do the fight scene, and then going to an empty corridor and have them walk around, and just kind of get them to have a go at kind of doing some acting and having fun. And it's great. It's a really lovely experience.
Amazing. So James, I know you're the supervising sound editor, and you and Jules were the re-recording mixers. I just want to make sure. So Jules, were you mixing dialogue and music, and James, were you doing effects, or how did you guys divide that up?
Yeah, James, we actually had, James, you had effects and you had the music, didn't you, on your rig? And I had the dialogue and Foley, because the Foley and the dialogue were linked together in terms of panning and reverb all the way through. So it made sense to keep those on the same rig. Yeah,
one of the things from Boiling Point was I was spending so much time panning each individual element. And when we got to doing Adolescence, I was like, I need to find a way that we can link everybody's like ADR track, everybody's radio mic and footsteps and cloth, so we could go all the way down and we weren't having to quadruple up doing panning. So that was really handy, wasn't it?
I mean, I can only imagine, because of the way you guys shot this and the challenges of doing that there must have been a fair amount of ADR that was needed in post. But you're shaking your head? Is that not right?
There was a handful of pieces. Most of what we recorded was additional stuff. There was very little technical ADR.
Yeah, three is. I remember saying to people that 3 is like 16 cues and most of it's breath, but it's like we might as well say for episode 3, there's no real ADR in it. It was just, it was just so well recorded, and then having the time in the edit to just really dig in, we just didn't need it. Everyone did such an amazing job that, Phil, we maybe done a few kind of half days, but it was just a little stuff, wasn't it?
I'm just astounded at that, because especially, Rob and Kiff, that first episode, like for instance, the scene, where they come into the house to make the arrest. I mean, that's at a very high emotional level. Everybody's shouting, and then you must have had nimble fingers to ride your levels on your mixer for those sequences.
That was bedlam, and really it's Phil's fault, because both James and I said, okay, now when we're upstairs, can we stop you all shouting down the stairs? And Phil's going, no, I really want them all the whole time.
You're like, they're not on camera. Why do we have to hear them? This is creating chaos.
It's kind of really the standard sound man sort of mantra, but I can't see them. Why would they be making that noise? But Phil wanted that whole energy in the house, which it definitely has. Actually, Jane said something the other night. We were doing another one of these, which stuck in my head. He said, because what we did, we tried to record as much of everything as we could get, knowing that James and Jules would take that away, pick it apart down to the atomic level, and then build it up again so it works exactly right for what Phil wanted. So, and he said it was like doing a 2,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, which I thought, I bet it was. But I thought, okay, actually, what Rob and I were trying to do, we were trying to make sure that he had those 2,000 pieces. So it wasn't a question, okay, you couldn't mix that in any way like James and Jules delivered it. You just couldn't. Like, it was 2 minutes of insanity. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to sort of hold the dialogue up it, but then capture everything else, which you knew James and Jules would then slide in, okay, that bit there, that bit there, that bit, and that's what you're trying to do in a scene like that. You can't hope, that your fingers can be quick enough, because also they did it differently every time. So sure, the daughter lying on her knees by the bathroom, sometimes she shouts to her dad. So you're sort of hovering over the faders, going, "Oh, she didn't do it. Someone else did something else." You've missed that.
I hadn't even thought about that till you said it, but it's really interesting from the actor's perspective, because it really is like theater. They don't have to worry about matching coverage between shots. Like you're just doing the full thing each time, and each time it could be very different.
Also, because the police went into the house really hard, and it wasn't just the ones we had the camera on that were doing it. They were doing it all through the house. The atmosphere in that house was tense for the actors. Really tense, threatening. So, and they were acting in that way. So that's also, the performances were kind of marvelous, I thought.
James, I know, when we were in Los Angeles several weeks ago, we got a chance to talk about this, but one of the things that struck me, especially the second and third time I was watching through, was, obviously the stylistic approach to the storytelling is very naturalistic in the show, but I was really struck by how you did find some opportunities, especially in that episode 1, to go subjective with the sound design at these, I would say, these emotionally heightened moments. I mean, the whole thing is emotionally heightened, but these specific moments, I'm thinking about, Jamie in the car, as he's being taken to the police station. You really kind of, it was a very interesting approach to the mix there. You kind of take the dialogue out and you really push the music forward, and, it becomes almost muffled. And I feel like I'm having kind of Jamie's subjective POV from an audio standpoint in that sequence. And then I'm thinking too about, that remarkable close up on Eddie while while his son is being strip searched in the interrogation room, and again a similar approach where I feel you went very subjective in POV with the sound design. So can you talk to us about those moments? And was that always part of the design from the beginning, or did you find those in post, or how did those sequences come together?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, when Phil and I first started talking about it, it was kind of like we didn't know if there was going to be score. And we kind of said the other night, it developed as you were shooting, and then we're watching things back and felt that with episode 3 to start with, and then 1, Aaron and David, the composers, bringing them in, and they started to do these kind of brilliant compositions that it just opened up. Like Jamie in the Van, that started off with me and Phil while you were in the tech week for episode 2, and we were in that little edit room in Doncaster, outside Doncaster, and we just put that together as an idea, and then Aaron and David kind of took that original idea with the kind of the clock tick and kind of the drones, and then they just created something else entirely. It was amazing.
With that, the one in the van, it actually it came from the fact that Jamie was talking too much, and on the take that we used, his tone was slightly too not aggressive, but we wanted to use that take, and I was like, there's just a moment there in the van which is not as I don't want to say it's not as good as the other takes, but it was just slightly different, and it sort of jarred a little bit. And so we were like, what if we were to do something with the sound and like make you feel a bit, like in Jamie's sort of head space. And then James did this test with some music that we found, and no joke, we because we had an edit suite because we needed to, watch things back and stuff. And he did it in like, I don't know, an hour or 2, and I watched it back. I was like, oh, I got goosebumps all over me, and I was like, oh yeah, that's the feeling. That's what we need. That's it. And so, and that was literally in an hour, and we used that for a long time. That test, didn't we?
I remember watching it with Joe Johnson, and you playing it to her for the first time, and afterwards she didn't say anything, and I was like, oh God, does she hate it? And then she was like, I'm so moved by it. It's amazing. And I was at that kind of breath of release. But also, it changed the way that we approached then, like the entire series and with sound. And Eddie in the bar, not Eddie in the bathroom, but Eddie in the nurse's room. That's kind of like the complete opposite. And I think really early on, we were like, we're going to go to like nothing in there. I think at one point we had a note, somebody saying, do you want to try music in the sequence? And I think both of us went, it just worked so.
No, it was one of the producers said, I think it needs music. And I was like, we both were like, I looked at James, I was like, I definitely doesn't need music, does he? And I was like, please tell me. I'm thinking zero music here, because we don't need to tell the audience what to feel in this moment. They're going to feel it. And like, yeah, James said, it's like we went the opposite way, and we just wanted to hear pin drop, so you can hear Jamie's feet moving around. And
yeah. And honestly, Stephen doesn't need the help, right? He did it.
I bumped into my neighbour the other day, and she said, oh, I've been wanting to say about Adolescence, and I thought it was, amazing, and loved the series. And she's got young kids herself, and one of the scenes that she mentioned about the sound and about the feeling was that nurse's scene. So it's lovely just to hear that, like, what we did just for kind of just a normal person out there kind of really loved what we did. So yeah, it was really cool.
I was also struck by the sound design in the interview room when Jamie's being interrogated. It felt like almost a lack of sound. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of that room. It was just so antiseptic and so dry in a way. And then, of course, this is all building up to what for me is sort of the kind of the emotional climax of the first episode, which is the playback of the CCTV footage. And and Jamie and Eddie seeing, Eddie especially seeing for the first time, on the laptop monitor what's happened. And so I would love for you to talk about, James, that kind of how you approached the sound of that interview room, and especially that there's something interesting going on in the track that you're doing during the playback of that CCTV footage.
Matt was saying the other day about, kind of shooting and being a DOP and supporting the story, and kind of touched upon, like, trying to do the same thing with sound and not get to a scene like the interview room and going, okay, we're in the interview room, but we're in the police station and there's people walking by perhaps. And it would have been very easy to start filling out that scene. And like the performances and everything going on is so good that it's just sonically the focus is on making the dialogue as pristine as possible. And then, there's, I think Jules maybe have the session open behind him, but there's, with the atmospheres, there's just a big long automation line in the volume of it just getting quieter and quieter and quieter. And then we have the laptop. And we tried a lot of things.
Things.
Kind of the reveal.
Yeah, we tried music. We tried, different sounds, just, bringing there's just loads of things, and nothing was working, was it? And then I think in the end we just said, let's just turn the volume. As we go closer to the laptop, let's just turn the volume and so we just hear the sound of the laptop. That's all you need to hear. Obviously it's a lot more complex than that. But and then you almost want people have said to me that moment is like they're completely holding their breath, and so all you can hear is this sound of a laptop, and it's you can almost hear what's going on screen because the visuals are so intense that few people have said to me that they've made that the sound is there, but it's not,
They made it up, right?
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. I mean, it's the moment when the bottom falls out of everything. It's incredibly powerful, just amazing work. I want to shift for a minute and talk about episode 2. Matthew, you shot all 4 episodes, obviously, but I feel like I was particularly struck by the work in episode 2. This is the episode that takes place in the school when the police detectives come and try to gather some more information.
Mr. Malik. How can I help? Let's have a word with Ryan.
Sir, at least stop the tape.
Okay. Just one second. Ryan, go on. Come here! Ryan! Stop running. Stop me. Ryan! Hey! Ryan! Stop! Hey! Come here! Ryan! Don't! You there? Hey! Come here! What? Huh? Ryan! On the road! Hey! Where you going? Stop running! Get the fuck down! What the fuck are you doing?
Again, I have to admit, I understood that this was a oneer. I kept, honestly, 3 times I watched that episode trying to figure out where the stitches were, because I thought there's no possible way that this is actually a true oneer for an entire, I don't know, what 50 minutes that episode was. And I finally just had to admit to myself that, like, oh my God, they really actually did this in one continuous uninterrupted take, which is just extraordinary. But for you, Matt, that 300 extras, you're moving all over that school between buildings. Like, what was it? I mean, what was the single biggest problem that you had to solve in approaching that episode?
Single. There's more.
Single, yeah. Big one of the 3,000 problems that we had to solve. I think from a technical perspective, it was potentially our video team's problem of having a consistent video feed back to a single place for, across the geography that we're across. And that's like, we're one side of a school to another, which has got infinite number of very thick concrete walls and sort of tin roofs and stuff. And then you're all the way up a street as well. And then later on you take off and you spoiler, you go on a drone down the road. So like having signal across that massive range of area so that essentially like the whole thing can run, because without being able to see where we are, the first AD and anyone that's looking at monitors to cue stuff can't, and even I guess for Kiff and Rob, I don't know actually how it worked with you guys, whether you also had a connection to that, but essentially everyone needed to know where the camera was, and that was the best way of doing it. So for them, they had a whole system of basically a net of receivers throughout the school. I can't remember, I think it was Vaxis system that was throughout the school. We basically piggybacked off of the DJI system that was built into the camera because we used the Ronin 4D. That went to our focus puller with the sort of high bright monitor. Then he had a backpack on that then sent signal, then push signal out of a Vaxis transmitter onwards to all the receivers in the school. And there was, I don't know, I'm not sure the total number of receivers. It was probably close to 10 receivers dotted throughout the school in different places, and as well as outside. And then they were all hardwired, like proper hardwired back to a single sort of, I can't remember, it's Black Magic that does the sort of the box that kind of like can select the basically the strongest feed at any one time and sort of flick between them. So I think that part was automated in the system, but then essentially the video team had to rig all that in pretty much in the 1 week that they had, like while we were with the actors, because once you start, like you really need to be able to, everyone needs to be able to see it once we're rehearsing properly. So I think they were down to the wire on that. I don't know how they did it, to be honest. They were up ladders, like on roofs, like all over the place, putting antenna in different places and different buildings. So
I like what you did there, down to the wire.
Down to the wire, well, down to the cable, I guess you should have said. Yeah. If I said wire, I would have been like banned from blacklisted from the industry. So yeah, that was huge. I mean, obviously the drone at the end was a bit of a technical challenge. That was more about the sort of, because we tested the drone system. It was more about the choreography of, the fact that happened at the end of an episode. We didn't want it to not work, obviously. So it was just about how we made sure that that we were well rehearsed enough with the time we had to make that happen. And then there was wind and there was all sorts going on, but
I can only imagine that you're getting about 45 minutes into the takes and you must have just started sweating. Like, my God, we're getting
sweating. I wish that was when I started sweating.
And Matthew, you were operating as well, right?
Yeah, so I operated the first episode we shot, which was at 3. I operated that in its entirety, and then me and Lee David Brown, my operator, sort of leapfrogged each other, operating the camera, passing it between us through the other 3 episodes. And in episode 2, James, who was our drone operator, he also, for a section, a very short section just before the chase, he operated the camera because basically we needed more people, more operators, but only for that one section. Maybe there was another one as well. Oh, he was on the wheels for a section as well.
What camera did you use again?
It's the Ronin 4D. It's like a sort of the gimbal and camera sort of all-in-one system that DJI have.
Got it. What does that thing weigh?
I should know this number off by heart at this stage. It's a fairly solid, lump of plastic and metal. You can hold it out in front of you for maybe like 4 or 5 minutes comfortably, 10 minutes very uncomfortably with your elbows sort of rested into your chest.
Well, so this is a very practical question. Like, you had to get through an hour's worth of material. Was this part of the reason why you guys were handing back and forth so that you could actually just rest and shake your arms out and get ready to take
the lactic acid out of your arms, because your forearms get to a point where they're just shaking. There's nothing you can do about it. And neither of us are like the most like the fittest people in the world. We can get by, but even for someone, you're just holding any weight at arm's length or out in front of you or whatever, it takes its toll. So for episode 3, because it was all in that one location, I had the advantage of being able to wear a Steadicam vest essentially with an arm that was able to suspend the camera and take the weight of it. Still put the weight somewhere, and that was on my back and shoulders, but it was way more durable. So I was able to do the 10 takes of that plus rehearsals, so it's like 10 hours of carrying that camera, like in pain by the end. Like there was points where I was like, I'm actually going to hurt myself here, and I had to sort of we'd adjust the vest, and I'd stink of deep heat and be taking all these electrolytes and trying to and wearing my silly sweatband to make sure the sweat wasn't dripping in my eyes, but like finding the shortest shorts I could possibly find, apparently, but like getting through by whatever means. And then in the other 2 episodes, it was a mixture of the creative and the physical sort of like challenge of it. That was that if we had 2 operators, not only could we do some interesting moves, there was opportunity to pass the camera over desks or tables, or what we did like through windows, or also utilize the fact that with another operator you can connect the camera to like master wheels, essentially. I think we could use Nodo wheels, I think they're called, but you can control the camera's head, like the gimbal part, remotely, while the other operators moving it physically through space, without interrupting the entire system. So like it doesn't calibrate, it doesn't reset. It just like you can just quietly connect wheels to a camera and it'll just control it. So that we could, opened up being able to like walk. There was a section in the school where I was able to walk forwards up some stairs, knowing that Lee was on the wheels, framing the shot over my shoulder. Basically, I was just holding the camera out to the side. Stuff that you just would just meant, less things could go wrong. I couldn't fall backwards up the stairs, and you could do more cool, interesting moves that help you get out of problems. Like, how do you get through a window as one operator? You can't just jump. There was that, and then also just the fact that it meant that you could rest, like not fall into dust. Yeah.
That's what a huge challenge. And as specifically about the episode 2 and the school, tell me a little bit about your approach to lighting, because obviously, it's a very naturalistic look, but and you couldn't hide anything, right? I mean, what opportunities did you have to kind of get in and augment some lighting? And how much of that did you I presume that you had to do some work in the DI as well.
Oh yeah.
Color grade as well.
Yeah, the grade was definitely, the grade was quite an not intense process, but a long process, because there was so much tweaking of exposure and levels to be done, where we got essentially the job of the exposure on set was almost just information gathering, like what as it always is, but keeping the exposure within that threshold as we move inside and outside. You got like 4 or 5 stops of change in the exposure that you just got to try and keep within. So so the school episode was probably the most naturalistic, I think. Both the 2 episodes, so 3 and 1, where we had a set, we were able to create more shape and have more control over. Everything was on DMX in the studio, so you're able to sort of throughout all those episodes dial the levels up and down. Like you have a backlight that will come up when you're facing a certain direction. You have Titan tubes stuck in little corners, hidden out the way. You have all sorts of stuff that's just sort of slightly being tweaked. But in the school, we didn't have DMX throughout the school. It's such a large area. It was much more sort of not set and forget, but sort of know where the blocking is, because quite often we'd come into a room, the route in a room would be the same and the choreography would be the same every time. Say like a classroom, so like I don't know, with like Bascom and his son, like that room, the blocking was always we face the windows and then they come over to the wall and we turn and we face the wall on the left.
Huge contrast between those two ways you're facing, right? But you had very limited options to cheat lighting in there, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was creating consistency by having a hard source outside that we were, I can't remember, it would have been like a 12K or something that was coming through that window. But then, so like that if the sun goes away, you've got that same level that's hitting the back of the room. That there's at least the weather looks consistent as well, which is quite useful. But also, that your level in the room is going to be quite consistent. And then it was setting, so all of the ceiling tiles throughout, like a lot of those core rooms we changed so that we had control and could set them. So they were on dimmers. They were able to be like, those were the best way that we had control throughout the school. So we changed them. They're called like tech tiles that we just swapped out a lot of the sort of panel lighting in the school, as well as like where there was like fluorescent housing, we swapped those out for Asiras, so like you could have control that way, and you'd sort of try and set each position to a level that worked and sort of blend them through during the take. So it was it was just very positional, and you have little sort of your markers, and you're sort of trying to hide all these little changes throughout in all the episodes. And there's stuff like in episode 3 where if you look at the lighting as you spin around that table, it changes in ways that is super unrealistic. The key side moves around every time you move past someone's head. If you look at the shadows on the table and the sort of, but like you have to sort of at some point know what the audience isn't going to notice, and what they will just feel subconsciously, and what will make the show look better without being jarring.
Okay, Matthew, I have to pin you down and ask you to spill your secrets here. My producer and I have been having a vehement argument back and forth. Episode 2 in the school. How do you got the shot where you follow the kid out the window when the chase starts?
What do you think? How do you think?
Go on. We love this question.
go on.
We're like, did they cheat? Did they take part of the wall away? How? What? I think you took part of you took some of the glass out of the pane, right? And then passed a camera through. Was it that simple?
It's that simple. I think what's really fun about that question is people ask it expecting it to be a really complicated answer, which is amazing because it means that it's clearly like an effective use of a simple technique. But I call it simple. I couldn't CGI a window back in if I had a gun to my head. But we pulled a glass pane out of the left side. I think the frame was missing as well, wasn't it? It was the entire frame. With the sort of obviously the right side being a reference frame, and he did the silver ball and the shard and stuff. So we had all these sort of information for VFX. Quite simply, that's the section that James operated a bit of it. So he had the camera up until the window where Lee has run around the outside of the school from the last time he had the camera. He's run around the outside. He's positioned just to the left of the window, but he's run before the window. The actual run. Yeah, and he literally he's just there waiting for that camera to pop out the window, and he just grabs it and he runs with Kane, and then the camera, as he's running, he tips it back to look at Bascom, and then he pans it back round, and yeah,
he passes it to you on a.
And then he passes it to me on a tracking vehicle in the car park.
Okay, and then Matt. So Matt, then did you cover the chase? Were you the poor bastard who had to do all the running, or did you make one of your guys have to do that?
Why have you got to put it like that? I was gonna. The chase bit was my pride and joy. I was really looking forward to doing that, and then conveniently I put my knee out coming into that episode. So off the back of episode 3, where I was sort of crabbing sideways around a table for however many hours, I did another episode, and then we did episode 2, and my knee was just giving up. My IT band was super tight, and I couldn't run. So I very nobly gave that over to Lee to do, and I was like, I'm so sorry, but enjoy.
You did do some of it though. You ran across the road.
Yeah. Okay. True. So thank you, Phil. Actually, that's very good.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah. Give me some
credit.
That's
good. You were the one who actually had to dodge the cars.
Exactly. Which is huge. It's a huge amount of responsibility, isn't it? But so I grabbed the camera off of Lee as when he gets to the car park and the camera starts moving up the road, he passes the camera across a railing to me, and I'm moving in parallel up the car park over this railing. I take the camera on this tracking vehicle, and then we sort of catch up to the boys running up the hill, and then I jump off of the tracking vehicle. I got my harness gets released. I step off of it when it comes to a stop. And then I run across the road and sort of slide over the bonnet of both cars. It's miraculous that we got the shot, but there you go. It's such a skillful operator. And then up into the alleyway. I did that whole section there.
And then from production sound, who draw this short straw? Who had to run with the boom and to keep those?
I was carrying the mixer.
You were? You had to run up the road?
You were carrying the mixer. Good God.
And I wasn't on a vehicle either.
No, you went on the vehicle.
And I'm sort there, got a boom op that's just run out the school because they'd been inside and I had to swap their boom over to an outside boom, run out the school. And then as soon as we see Matt go, we sort of up the hill. And then another.
And it was a hill. It was quite a steep hill.
Yeah.
And then, it sounds theoretically so simple that you just attach the camera to the drone and the drone does the shot and then you take it off and put it up, just handheld the wrist. But it sounds so simple, but I can't imagine how complicated that was for you guys to do. And I understand that that was actually the last part of that shot, which was the kind of the moving into the close up on Stephen at the very end, was something that you guys decided to do after you'd already done a couple of takes of that, right? Of the entire show. We
were on day 2, which is the Tuesday, and one of the Netflix execs, Toby Bentley, I'm going to name him, shame him. He said to us, I think we need Stephen in this episode somehow. And I was like, what do you mean? We're on it's Tuesday.
We've already shot this 4 times, right?
We've shot it 4 times. Yeah.
We haven't got a complete one yet.
No, exactly. We didn't have exactly. And so we sort of, but then my brain was like, and he said, look, wouldn't it be great if we could land the drone and then maybe, see Stephen at the murder site? And I was like, oh, that could be really cool. I wish I'd have thought of that. We've got to do that. We've got to do it. And so I said to Matt, listen to me now, just listen. Are you sitting down? And I think he may have collapsed when I told him this is what we're going to try and do. So on the Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, we said, let's not do a take in the morning. Let's try and practice this move. And so we spent the whole of Wednesday morning just testing this move, and it did work once, but it wasn't enough. And Matt was very stressed. Obviously, we were all quite stressed, but I just wanted it because it was so cool, and I was like, oh, this could be so good if we get it right. So then we were like, right, tomorrow we'll do it. And so Thursday we came in, and it was gale force winds, like the strongest winds that we've ever experienced in the UK, I think, ever. And we couldn't even take off with the drone. So we had to come up with a plan C, which was Stephen could be at the school gates. And so when Matt would walk across the road with Jade, and Stephen is waiting on the other side of the road with some flowers. And it was nice. It was, it was still emotional and all that stuff. But I was like, God, hopefully the weather's nice tomorrow. So then on the Friday, it was, the weather was still a little bit windy in the morning, if I'm not mistaken. But then the final take was perfect. And that was the take we used. So we only really did it once, properly.
What if, I can't even imagine, what was the feeling of relief after you guys got through that week and you got the one take that you needed?
It was like, we've got the weekend, then we've got to do the next episode.
Yeah, there you go.
You start from scratch again. It's actually really brutal.
It was starting from scratch, yeah.
There's no time to celebrate.
How are we going to do this next one now,
Yeah. Now we've got to be in a car.
And now we're going to do this other thing,
Yeah.
Well, you guys are on the Dolby podcast, so James and Jules, I can't let you guys go without talking a little bit about how you use Dolby Atmos in the mix. Yeah. I would love to give you guys a second to talk about that.
I mean, it was great having Dolby Atmos for this, not only for the kind of creative element of, the point source panning and giving everything some height. It made the whole experience so more immersive and really lent into the one shot experience. But it was also, from a technical point of view, it made life really easy because James, was editing and balancing stuff and panning and using the internal renderer, and then was able to send that session over to me while he carried on another ep. I could open it up, didn't have to change anything other than to flick the renderer to the external RMU, and I could pre-mix stuff. And then when we got together for the final mixes, we could just split it back out again into two separate sessions, and it worked a dream, didn't it? It was really handy for that.
Yeah, that handover, especially like going from kind of edit mix for me at home, having the internal renderer and coming in and being like, it sounds like not a million miles away. Obviously, you want to be in the studio and mixing it properly, but being able to like be at home using the internal renderer and knowing that we can walk in the studio and be like 4 steps ahead was great.
Because you could even use like the binaural output to get some sense of what the height was going to be like. And it translated remarkably well, didn't it, to the studio?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Well, you guys have been very generous. I just want to wrap. Philip, this has been, I think this show has had such an impact. It's not only been hugely watched, but also I think one of the most discussed shows that's come along in a long time. How has this process been for you to make this show that has kind of become such a huge subject of conversation in the zeitgeist?
I mean, well, I think I speak for all of us really when I say we had no clue that it was going to do what it's done, and we didn't make a show with that in mind. We were all sort of like just excited, just puppies on this like, because we were making something different, and we'd all done it before, but we were able to do it on a bigger platform with more toys and just expand our sort of like I don't know, excitement is the right word, but I think we wanted, I mean, for me, I wanted to make something that really hopefully sparked a conversation. And the idea was for it to be in the UK, and it's a very small colloquial show, which we shot in Pontefract in Yorkshire, in the north of England. And suddenly, the show comes out, and you're like, oh, I hope people watch it. I hope people get it, and I hope people see the hard work that we've all put into it, and the passion that we've all put into it. And then day by day as it's coming out, and it's now number one in India, and it's number one in all of these countries, and you're just like, really? Is that what? It's just, and it does continue to blow my mind, really, what the show is doing, and it just goes to show that I think we've just hit on the zeitgeist and really hit a moment that, especially with parents and, teachers and even young people as well. It's like, yeah, it's really blown my mind.
Most important, my last question, Philip, are you gonna do again single shot on the next project, or are you gonna shoot coverage?
Well, I'm in post on the next project, so I'm in the edit on the next project. So you go figure.
Oh, you're in edit. I see. That's a good clue. Okay, all right.
I'd definitely do it again. I would definitely do it again, and I would do it with all of these guys, and hopefully they would do it again as well, because it's an amazing way of working, and it's exhilarating, it's scary, but it's the end result when you get it, when you've got that take and you've done it, it's like nothing. It's like nothing else. I imagine it's like if you were a footballer and you won the World Cup. You just run around the pitch. It's it's magical.
It's only a couple of days after we finished doing Adolescence, and we were kind of all burnt out and a bit exhausted. But a few days later, we're like, oh, let's go again. And we want to do it again. And we miss.
Yeah, you do. You miss it. I miss it, actually. I do miss that way of working. And, I'm sure, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely do.
All of us have said exactly the same thing. It's sort of, once you get over it, you think, wow, that was... Ooh. But then you think, I don't really want to do anything else now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But congratulations. You guys have made a global phenomenon. Thank you for coming on the Dolby podcast today to talk to us about it. It was a real pleasure. I had so many questions and you answered them all. This was a great conversation. Many thanks to Philip, Matthew, James, Jules, Rob, and Kiff for joining us on the podcast today. And an extra special thanks to our good friends at Netflix for helping us put this conversation together. We wish the team the best of luck as they approach the Emmy Awards on Sunday, September 14th. If somehow you haven't seen Adolescence yet, the limited series is now streaming on Netflix in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. We'll have links, as always, in our show notes. And if you'd like even more conversations with artists and filmmakers about how they use technology to tell their stories, be sure you're subscribed to Dolby Creator Talks. You can find links to our show on all the major podcasting platforms, including the video version on YouTube, in our show notes. Or you can simply search for Dolby wherever you get your podcasts. If you're curious to know more about what we do at Dolby Creator Lab, head on over to dolbycreatorlab.com. There you'll find information about all of our programs. You can access the entire library of episodes of the show, and you can sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, this is Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Our producer and editor is Michael Coleman. Our executive producers are Amanda Schneider and Jack Ferry, with additional editing by Matt Nixon. And our production coordinator is Karen Marroquin. Thanks for joining us.